All right, strap in today, folks. It's going to be a longie, but a goodie. That doesn't make any sense, really, does it? Well, I'm just sitting here talking to a wall, so I can say whatever I want, and I don't know. Well, hello. Anyway, today's episode is going to be good. The reason I say it's going to be a longie is because I actually did a video for the episode that I'm going to be talking about for the YouTube channel, and that video turned out to be about 30 minutes, and I tend to go faster on videos than I do here on the podcast, so I have a feeling you might want to listen to this one in double speed, but it's going to be jam-packed with actionable information that you can use to start and build your business legally, correctly, the right way here in 2023. So let's just get into the intro and all that jazz. Why don't we? All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Legal Gym Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the podcast where we help you to start, build, grow, and of course, legally protect your very own online business or regular business. If you're a brick and mortar store, we're happy to have you too. But this is the podcast where we help you do it, where we give you all that information that you need to get set up legally and to build the business of your dreams so you can have that freedom of lifestyle, freedom to work when, where, and how you want. And today, what I want to talk with you about is how to start and build a business, legally speaking, in 2023, the world that we are living in right now. So for the show notes for today's episode, which will include all of the links and resources, everything that I'm going to be discussing today, make sure you head on over to hawthornelaw.net/39. That's hawthornelaw.net/39. All right. Let's go ahead and dive in. Before we get into the amazing content for today's episode, I wanted to let you know about a new training that I'm working on. I'm going to be teaching my 4R framework to get your trademarks registered quickly and easily. In addition, I'll be sharing the top 3 mistakes that I see online entrepreneurs make that can sabotage their brand and even force them into bankruptcy. So if you want to sleep better at night knowing that your brand is protected, you definitely don't want to miss this training. Just head on over to hawthornelaw.net/trademark to get notified when the training is live. One more time, that's hawthornelaw.net/trademark. And don't forget, everyone who attends this training is going to get a free gift. So if you're an entrepreneur who is building a brand online, this is one training you don't want to miss. One more time, head on over to hawthornelaw.net/trademark to get signed up for the notification list today. All right, so for those of you who are interested in starting a business, then this is the episode you really need to pay a lot of attention to. And I'm hoping this episode will actually be quite popular because I think that the information I have to share today is information that a lot of people really need to hear when they're thinking about starting their business. And you know, if you're listening to this, then chances are you're already somebody who wants to get your business set up properly from the very beginning. You want to make sure you dot all your I's, cross all your T's. You want to make sure you don't get in any trouble with the IRS or with your state agencies or anything like that. You want to make sure everything that you've done is good and protected. And the problem that you're running into and the problem that you face as you're starting to try and build that business is, you know, maybe you have a great idea for business. Maybe you know what you want to do and you know who you want to sell to. All of this, I might add, is really important kind of preliminary stuff that you need to be doing before you actually start the process of building your business legally. You need to know who is your client, who is your customer, what are their needs, what are their problems, what are the areas that they really struggle with in their lives, and how can you, as the entrepreneur, help them to overcome those hurdles? So that's, as a preliminary point, is that the right word? As a preliminary, thing to do. I'm not saying that right. I can't think of the right word. I apologize. I live in Portugal and I've been here for about 6 months, and just as a quick aside, I've been trying to learn Portuguese for the last 6 months, which means my brain is full of Portuguese words that I'm trying to learn. And so sometimes I'm starting to forget the English words that I actually should probably know after being on this earth for almost 50 years, and speaking English that entire time. So anyway, my point here is that you need to take, as a preliminary matter, that's what I'm trying to say, you need to make sure that you know who your clients are, who your customers are, and how you're going to be able to help them. Because if you don't know that, then none of this legal stuff is going to matter. So assuming that you're at that point where you know kind of what it is you want to do, what you want to build in terms of a business, well, now the problem you're having is you don't know how to get set up legally. And that's where we're going to help you today. And before we get into that, I think it's important you understand that there are some pretty big stakes here. There's some things that can happen if you don't do this the right way. If you pick the wrong name for your business. I just dealt with a client recently, she hired me to help with her trademark application, and I did a search, and lo and behold, the name that she had picked, which was an awesome name, by the way. Like I was like, yeah, this is great. I was all on board. I thought it was a great name for her brand, but then after she hired me and I did the trademark search, it had already been taken by another competitor of hers. So that is a potential problem. And you want to make sure you're not doing that. You want to make sure you're not picking a name that somebody else is using for your brand. That's bad. Accounting, huge issue. A lot of people at the very outset, one of the most important things you need to do is make sure you get that accounting system in place. And I'm sorry to say, I know a lot of people say that, just put it all in Excel, or Google Sheets or something. That is not the answer. If you're running a legitimate business, you want to make sure you have a proper accounting system in place. We're going to talk about that here more today. Another thing that could happen is, and just an aside with the accounting system, have you ever seen the movie Dodgeball, where I can't remember the name characters in that movie, but anyway, the one guy, he owns a gym and he doesn't own it. I mean, he's a bad business owner. He's a bad example of how to run a business right there. And so he's going to be shut down. And so they bring in a lawyer to help him go through all his books and figure out, how many assets he has and what he can actually sell off if he's going to shut down the business. And so she asks him where his books are, and he goes in the closet and he finds a chute, basically a bunch of boxes full of old receipts and invoices and things like that. And she's like, that's your books? And he's like, oh yeah, we call those keepers. And so that's not the right way to run an accounting system for your business. Okay. Another thing that you should be thinking about is, when it comes to legal, a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And if you're brand new to this and you've never run a business before, maybe you're young or maybe you've been working at a job for most of your life and you never had to deal with these type of issues, there's a lot of things that go into running a business. It's not just a matter of throwing up a website, putting some widgets on that website, and people come and pay you lots of money. That's not the way it works out. So if you're at this initial startup phase, a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And if you get it wrong, and I think there's a cat meowing at me, so let me go deal with the cat. Again, we've got this shitty cat, excuse my language, but it's my daughter's cat, and she loves this cat, and everyone else in the family hates the cat, and the cat just is annoying, meows all the time, probably makes me get up 10 times a day, which is probably good. I probably do need to get up from my desk more than I do to let him in, let him out. It's actually a she. We thought for the first year he was a he, which is why we call him a he, but it's actually a girl cat. And whenever I sit down to record a podcast or do a video, the cat starts meowing at me, or get on a call with somebody, the cat starts meowing at me. Anyway, so where were we? We were talking about not knowing what you don't know. And so if you don't know what you don't know, that's why it's really important that you are listening in on today's episode, because we're going to talk about a lot of these issues. In case you don't know, if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, you don't know who I am. My name is Jim Hart. I'm a trademark lawyer. I've also done hundreds of LLCs for people in all across the United States, contracts, all those type of things. And so I'm intimately familiar. I've started a number of online businesses myself. I'm intimately familiar with what it is that you need to do when you're legally starting a business. I could probably recite it in my sleep. So I'm basically going to be explaining all that to you in today's episode. So let's jump into it, shall we? There are, let's see, how many numbers did I come up with for this? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I came up with 10 things that you need to be doing and as you're starting your business, legally speaking. So let's start at the very beginning. And that's kind of what I've alluded to before, and that is you've got to plan out business. And so initially what you need to do is you really need to plan out your business. You need to know who are you going to be selling to? How are you going to be selling that whatever it is you're going to be selling to them? What are you going to be selling? How are you going to find those customers? Why will those customers buy from you as opposed to everyone else that might offer that product or service? Are there competitors in your field? All of these things you need to know. And in terms of the last thing, are there competitors in your field? This is really important because if there are no competitors in your field, chances are maybe this is not the right business to get into, because when you're just starting a business for the first time, you want to make sure that you're starting a business where there are competitors, because you need to know that there's a market for what it is that you're going to be selling. A lot of people think that when they go into business, they don't necessarily want to have a lot of competitors. They think that's a good thing. But in fact, that's a bad thing, because most businesses that are successful today, there's competitors. There's very few businesses that don't have competitors. Think about, when Apple first launched the iPhone. At that point, they didn't have any competitor for what they were doing. But it did not take long for other businesses to jump into the smartphone market and figure out how to create a smartphone and kind of mimic what Apple was doing. Now, Apple was an industry leader, but other companies came into that market. So you need to make sure that there are competitors in your field. If they're not, if you Google whatever it is that you want to sell, and you can't find anyone else selling it, that's a bad thing. The other thing to look at is if you go to Google your services and you don't see any Google ads running, that also might be a bad thing. You want to make sure that there is a market for what it is you are planning on selling. So that's number one. The second thing that I would recommend you do if you're just getting started in business here in 2023 is it's really important to pick a name for your brand. And you're saying right now, I hear you, you're saying, Jim, I don't have a brand. I want to do consulting, or I want to do some freelance work, or I want to do this, that, or the other. That's fine. All that is fine. At some point, you're going to want to take it bigger than just you. And any business that's successful is successful because it's able to grow beyond the owner themselves. And so who I'm really talking to with this podcast is people that are not just interested in building a job for themselves. Because if you're going to business and you're thinking, I want to, be a gig worker, or I want to do freelance writing, or I want to, design websites or whatever. All those things are well and good, but they're not scalable if it's just you. I mean, working for someone else as a gig, that's basically a job. If you're a gig worker, that's a job. That's not you building a business, because your marketing channel is, like Uber or, Uber Eats or whatever, or Lyft or whatever the company is that you're working for. If that's your marketing channel and that app goes out of business, you're all of a sudden out of business. That's not a real business. That's a job. You're being paid as an independent contractor. That's different. But I'm talking to those of you who are actually trying to build a business where you're going to go out and get your own clients or customers. Now, if you want to start off as a freelancer and write for other people, that's totally fine. Like if that's what you want to do, you want to be a writer, and the way you're going to make money initially is you're going to do freelancing. Totally cool, as long as you're building your own website on the side, and you whatever it is you're writing about, you are writing about that for your own website and building that website as you go. So anyway, this is why it's really important that you pick a name for your brand. And this doesn't have to be the end all be all. You might not keep this name forever. You might not keep this name for the next month. Like, I don't know. But if it's a name that you really like and you really love and you really feel committed to, then you want to take some steps to protect that. And so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the USPTO database and you're going to do a search for that name. And if you're not already on my email list, I am actually in the process of writing a book. And I did a whole chapter on how to do a proper search with the USPTO database. And so if you get onto my email list for the book, it is hawthornelaw.net/mark. hawthornelaw.net/mark. Sign up for updates. And I'll be emailing out here in conjunction with this release of this podcast, that chapter that tells how to do a proper search on the USPTO database, because that's really important when you're just getting started and you're just building that brand. All right, where was I? I think we were talking about picking the right name for your brand. I apologize. I had to take a quick break there to get on a client call. Duty calls, sometimes that happens. Anyway, we were talking about searching the USPTO database. If you get if you get on my book, if you get on the list for updates regarding my book, then I'm going to be sending you a sneak preview chapter of the how to do a proper USPTO search for your name. So you get that. Some other places that you need to be searching for your name, though, it's not just the USPTO database. You also need to be searching on Google. I typically would go 3 to 5 pages deep, 10 if you're feeling really enterprising, and look through all the results and see if there's anything that matches what you are selling with your name. All right, so once you've gone through the Google search, then you need to search social media profiles, and you just really need to make sure that nobody else is using a name that is the same as your name, or would be likelihood, or a name that is likely to be confused with your name, the name that you've decided to pick. And so that's basically what you need to do. So number 2 is you need to pick a name for your brand moving forward. Then you go on to number 3. Now, this is going to be somewhat controversial. I realize that, but this is kind of an either or. It's a choose your own adventure, if you will. And that is, you either want to go ahead and file your trademark application right now, or you want to register your business as an LLC. Or, third option, you could do both. Now, why would you want to do any of these? Well, if it's a matter of money and trying to save money, I would typically recommend going with your trademark registration first. And the reason for that is that the trademark system is a first to file system, which means that if you decide that you want to set up your LLC now and wait and file your trademark later, you could be operating for 6 months or a year before you decide to file your trademark application. And if you do it at that point, somebody else could have swooped in and either stolen your name, or they could have decided inadvertently to register the same name that you're trying to use. I've seen that happen before. Or you could be using a name for a year that is the same as a name that's already out there, in which case you could run into issues with that. So I recommend filing your trademark application as quickly as possible. The main benefit to doing that is, number 1, you reserve your spot in line at the trademark office. Number 2, if you hire a lawyer to do that, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that's what we do, then that lawyer is going to do a comprehensive trademark search for you. And you're going to know that you can be pretty confident that nobody is using the name that you ultimately decide to file an application for with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So that's why I suggest, if you have to pick between those two options, I would go ahead and file the trademark application first. You can always file an assignment that transfers the name of the trademark, or transfers the registration for the trademark from yourself as a sole proprietor to the name of your LLC. That's, again, something that we do and help clients with. And that's a fairly inexpensive option. So it's not a huge deal if you decide to start off as a sole proprietor and file your trademark application. The option that I would recommend, though, if you can do it, if you can swing it, is to file your LLC and then do your trademark at basically the same time. And so your LLC is going to own the trademark. Then you don't need to worry about an assignment. You're going to save some money there down the road. And then you're going to have your LLC in place. You'll have your trademark application filed. And that's going to provide you with a really nice foundation, legally speaking, for your business. In terms of where to file your LLC, if you decide that you want to move forward with the LLC as well, a lot of people try and get creative with this. They try and get fancy. They think they're going to do some asset protection. They're going to look into anonymous LLCs. Maybe they'll look into Delaware LLCs or Wyoming LLCs. That's all bullcrap, if you ask me. Just file in the state where you live. It's actually going to save you money in the long run to do it that way. If you file in a state where you don't actually live, then you are running into an issue where you may have to file as a foreign LLC in the other state. So you don't want to deal with that. So don't overcomplicate this. File in the state that you live or the state that you claim residency or domicile, and make it easy on yourself. Okay, once you've filed your trademark and or filed your LLC, let's assume that you filed your LLC. And even if you didn't file your LLC, this is the next step of the process, is you need to get your EIN number. Now, and I did this in the video too, I forgot a step. And what you should have done after you picked the name, but before you filed your trademark application and or filed your LLC, is you really needed to get a virtual address. Why do you need a virtual address? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. You need a virtual address so that you're not putting your personal address out there in the public eye. So it's really for privacy reasons. If you don't care if people see where you live, then fine, use your personal address. That's totally fine. You can do that. And there's nothing illegal about that. But personally, I think it's better for privacy reasons to use a virtual address so that you can hide your personal address on all these websites that might have access to that once you register your business. So once you have that virtual address, and I can include some links in the show notes page for today's episode to some resources that I've used to have a virtual address since I'm now living in Portugal. Obviously, I have a virtual address, and so I will include links in the show notes for that. Now, once you've got your address, once you've decided to file your trademark application and or set up your LLC, you need to go and get your EIN number. This takes about 5 minutes. You can go to irs.gov. They are more than happy to give you an EIN number. That means they get to collect taxes from you. So even if you're starting out as a sole proprietor, you still want to go and get that EIN number. And the reason for this is because by having that EIN number, you now can open up a business bank account, which means you'll be able to segregate your business and personal accounts. And that's very important. Once you commingle those things, that's a no-no. You don't want to do that. It makes it incredibly difficult to file taxes. If you ever got audited, it's going to make it even worse on you. So you want to make sure that you go ahead and get that EIN number and open up a business bank account. And you can get this online, like I said, through irs.gov. As long as you have your own social security number or tax ID number. If you're foreign, if you're living overseas and you're not a U.S. citizen, there's going to be some additional hoops to jump through, and you may need to talk to a lawyer for assistance. And I apologize if you can hear that. They're doing work on the suite underneath me. Lots of drilling and hammering and sawing and all sorts of fun stuff. It sounds like I don't even know what they're doing. It sounds like they're doing something with a drill. Anyway, get your EIN number. That's the next thing. Then going forward, I don't even know what number we're on anymore. You need to make sure you have a business license. So if you are in a profession, if you're a lawyer, doctor, CPA, financial advisor, realtor, something like that, then you're going to need obviously a license to do whatever it is you're doing. If you are a barber, hairdresser, own a nail salon, masseuse, anything like that where you might be giving personal services, then you're going to need probably a license for that. If you are working on certain equipment like an AC repair person or, plumber or, anything where you're working on equipment around the house, you probably need a license for that. So just about any occupation you can think of, you're going to need a license of some sort, maybe even insurance or a bond, depending on where you live. And so you're going to check with your city, county, and state to see what you need. This is always very location dependent. And there's, obviously 50 states and a gazillion counties and even more cities. So you need to check with your own local area where you live and see what the rules are. Now, I will warn you, if you go to your city and they're like, oh yeah, you need this license, well, that doesn't mean you don't need a county license. You might need a county license also, or vice versa. You might go to the city and they may say, oh yeah, you don't need anything from us, but then you go to the county and the county says you need something, or the state says you need something, but the county and the city don't need anything. So you need to check with all three to make sure that you're covered. So once you've got your business license, you've got your EIN, you've gotten your bank accounts, you've filed your trademark application, you've registered your business as an LLC, you picked a name, you've done your planning, what do you need to do? Well, you need to figure out whether or not you're going to need to collect sales tax. And if you're only selling digital products online, I also have a list of states that collect sales taxes. I will include a link in the show notes page. But if you're selling digital products, sales tax is a pain. It's one of those areas where governments are really struggling to keep up with what's going on online. And so definitely check out the sales tax worksheet that I have. Again, link in the show notes. Okay, I think I already kind of touched on this, but I did mention you need to go to the bank and you need to open up a business bank account. I've gotten people comment on this and say, well, where should I open up? What bank should I use? It doesn't matter. There's some suggestions out there. I will include links to some of the business banks that you could use that are good for online business in the show notes. But honestly, at the end of the day, you have to go with a bank that you trust and you like. Maybe you have a personal relationship with the banker. Ideally, it would be a bank that's easy to work with, that has a good online interface, that can do bill pay, that can do depositing checks through your phone, all sorts of things. Those are things you're really looking for. There's still some banks that are living kind of 10 years ago that you can't deposit checks on your phone, or you can deposit them, but they put a hold on them for like 5 days. You need to make sure you get a bank that you like and that you trust. All right. You're going to need your EIN and your articles of organization if you formed an LLC to set that up. Make sure you're not commingling your business assets with your personal assets. If you get checks for your business, deposit them into your personal account. If you need to pay personal bills, pay them out of your personal account, write yourself a check from the business and deposit it to your personal account, or do an electronic funds transfer. Do not pay personal bills out of the business. Do not pay business bills out of your personal. Just not a good idea. Keep those things separate. I do recommend the Profit First system. I've talked about this in other episodes and videos I've done. I'll include a link in the show notes that walks you through exactly how the Profit First system works. You're going to need to set up 4 accounts. When you walk into your banker and tell them you need to set up 4 accounts, they're going to look at you with googly eyes. I will tell you, for one of my businesses, I set up all my business bank accounts at fidelity.com. And I love it because all you had to do was fax in some paperwork with your articles of organization and your EIN number, and they set those up for you and emailed you back that everything had been set up. The problem is you need to have 4 sets of paperwork, and then you need to set up transfer paperwork so you can transfer money between the 2 accounts. So it's kind of a pain, but once it's set up, it's very easy at that point. Also, for small businesses, RelayFi is a good option. They allow you to set up as many bank accounts as you want, and they also have some bookkeeping type of built into their software. So maybe a good option for you. Check them out, see if you like them. From there, once you've got your business bank account set up, you need to log in online somewhere, and you need to go ahead and set up a bookkeeping system. So I kind of referenced this at the top of the show. QuickBooks Online is a great system. That's what I've used. I'll include a link in the show notes page. Xero is another one that is a lot of people like. I personally don't like it, but I think that's because I'm so used to doing things with QuickBooks. I tried it for another business years ago. I didn't like it, so I just went with QuickBooks instead. Or you could hire a bookkeeper to help you set all this stuff up, and they might have a system in place already for what they like to use, and you can just go with what they're doing. So that's a good idea. All right, the next option, the next thing that you need to do is you need to get some insurance for your business. So I would get a referral to someone local. Usually you can find this through a local BNI group, assuming you're in the United States, and talk to them about what you might need. A general liability policy is typically going to run you about a couple $100 per year. If you're in a specialized field, like let's say you're selling like baby products or, consumables, anything that you put on your body or in your mouth, then your policy might be a little bit higher because there's a risk that somebody might get sick if they use your products and, could sue you. But a general liability policy in general, no pun intended, is going to cost you a couple $100 a year. So once you've got that insurance in place, the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you get some contracts in place. At a minimum, you're going to need an operating agreement for your LLC or a partnership agreement if you have partners that you're working with. Legally, you must have a privacy policy if you've got a website and you're collecting any type of information from customers or clients or potential customers. You need to have that privacy policy in place. It's also good practice to have a website terms of service if you're selling products online, not through Amazon, not through Etsy, but maybe through your own website, like a Shopify store, or maybe you're using WooCommerce. You want to make sure you have a terms of sale so that people can check the box and say they agree to your terms of sale before they purchase. And I'm going to include a link in the show notes to my online template store, where you can find all of the links to these different templates that you can purchase if you'd like to, and much more. So find that in the show notes page. So that's kind of it in terms of what you need to do to legally set up your business. I know that sounds like a lot. There's a ton of other things you need to potentially be worrying about. And if you want to get a good list of like the ultimate checklist of everything you need to do legally speaking to protect your business, I'll include a link to that in the show notes, and you can get access to that as well. That's a really great checklist that'll give you a lot of information in terms of what you need to do to get started. So let's just go through these again. Number 1 is to plan out your business. Number 2 is to pick your brand name. Number 3 is to either file your trademark application and or register your business as an LLC. Number 4, I think round 4, is to get your EIN number. Number 4A, which I should have done before, is to get your virtual business address if you want to keep yourself private. Number 5 is to make sure you have a business license. Number 6 is to register to collect sales tax if necessary in your state. Number 7 is to open a business bank account. Number 8 is to set up a bookkeeping system. Number 9, make sure you get some insurance. And number 10, get those contracts in place. The other thing I mentioned in terms of you're going to need a terms of sale. If you're doing one-to-one client services, like if you're doing freelancing or virtual assistant services or something like that, where you're helping people in a one-to-one capacity, you probably also want a client contract. And that's going to be very, very important. So I would, go to the show notes page, maybe bookmark the show notes page for this episode, because I listed a ton of resources here. I'll try and update that list of resources in the future as things change, and maybe even do an updated episode for this in the future as things change. And you'll have all the information you need if you bookmark that to get your business started the right way. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful to you. I got a quick announcement, and then we're going to finish this episode up. If you are interested in learning more about how to legally claim the rights to your brand, then you're going to want to schedule a free branding strategy call with me. That's right. For a limited time, I'm offering a free strategy call to talk with me about the branding for your online business and how to make sure it is legally protected. So if you'd like to learn more, head on over to hawthornelaw.net/TM-video. Once again, that's hawthornelaw.net/TM-video. On that landing page, we have lots of great information about the process of protecting your brand so that you don't have to worry about getting a cease and desist letter or being forced to rebrand your business at a great expense. Once again, that website is hawthornelaw.net/TM-video, and I look forward to talking with you soon. All right, all you Legal Gym listeners, now that you know more about how to start and build a business in 2023, you are ready to implement, because if there's one thing that we love to do over here at the Legal Gym, it's to take massive action. So if you haven't already, make sure to check out the show notes page for today's episode and maybe even bookmark it. You can get a rundown of all the links and resources, and there were a lot today that we talked about during today's episode by visiting hawthornelaw.net/39. That's hawthornelaw.net/39. That's going to be the home base for all of your legal and business tools and resources to help you start, build, and of course, legally protect your very own online business. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to talking with you in the next episode. And spoiler alert, I've got an amazing episode coming up. I interviewed a woman who started a brand, built it to multiple six figures in revenue, and sold it for a payday. And now she coaches others how to do that as well. You're not going to want to miss this. It's coming up next week here on the Legal Gym, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.